All right, good morning. We're just going to wait for everyone to get added in and then we will kick off. All right, well, good morning, everyone. Our topic for the coffee chat today is how to deal with non-committed leadership while implementing Lean. And Emir is going to give us the presentation today. One thing I would tell all of you, I know you've read his bio that was out when this was posted. Emir is part of the Michigan Lean Consortium events team, and he is absolutely awesome to work with. He's one of those people that you want to have on your team because he is always the first person to say, oh, I could do that, or hey, I know somebody who can do that for you. So it is with great pleasure that I introduce Emir to you. And Emir, I'm handing it off.
Jane, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I hope you guys are going to have a great Friday. This is obviously a presentation slash a coffee chat, right? So as we go through this as to how to deal with non-committed leadership team while implementing Lean, I will stop and you guys will have a chance to participate, ask questions, give comments. We have about an hour, but I'll try to make it about 35 to 40 minutes and then we'll have a Q&A afterwards. My name is Emir. So a little bit of background on myself. I am originally from Bosnia. I grew up in Germany, studied at GDSU, international business, worked in the currency exchange world for about 9 years, moved on to consulting. Through the consulting work, helping companies expand internationally, I have had the pleasure to meet a lot of companies in the US and Europe, which was my primary focus. Hence, Jane said, hey, if we ever need any connections, I have a lot of people in a big network that I work with. So I'm always happy to help. If any of you guys need any direction, even after this, please reach out. If there's anything I can help with, I'm happy to do so. So spending a lot of time on market entry strategies, process improvement, as well as supply chain optimization. If you go to my LinkedIn page, you will see a lot of those things that I have done. So as I'm talking about non-committed leadership team, and this specific topic is very dear to me because in the last 10 years where I have implemented Lean for process improvement, both in the US, across a lot of different industries, as well as in 24 countries in Europe, it is very, very hard to implement Lean if you have a non-committed leadership team or executives who do not understand what Lean truly is, and if they do not have a strategic a direction where they want Lean to go. In my experience, having Black Belt, Six Sigma, it is the toughest job is to convince somebody as to how and why you're implementing Lean and how to move forward. Okay, so we'll go through the agenda here. I hope everybody can see my screen. If you can't, please let me know. But the agenda today is we'll do a quick introduction. We'll touch base a little bit on what Lean is. I'm pretty sure a lot of people know what Lean is, but I will touch base on it from a perspective from a executive point, right? So all of this is tailored toward how to deal with executives and implementing Lean, and then why Lean is important to companies as you pitch it to the executives, as well as the importance of lean to strategic level executives who understand what lean is and what they're trying to get out of it, why lean implementations fail, consequences of implementing lean without that commitment of the executive team, and then best practices on lean implementation. And obviously these coincide with you implementing lean as well as convincing the executive team to continue to expand lean throughout the organization. And then finally, how to get executive buy-in to try lean out, right? A lot of people move jobs, they move from one company to the next. Once they move into that company, they realize, holy God, nothing works here. I have had lean before in my previous job. I really want to try to implement it. The executives aren't buying into it, especially here in West Michigan. We have a lot of small companies that have not really in manufacturing, as well as healthcare and other industries, but primarily manufacturing, which have not had lean before. They have not had Six Sigma. They have not had 5S, right? How do you get them to buy into it? And then finally, we'll have Q&A, okay? So what is lean, right? Again, from a perspective, from an executive perspective, we can explain lean in a lot of different ways. Obviously, if you're on a lean implementation side, there's a lot of values in lean and how everybody looks at lean. But it is very important to differentiate that as we're going through this, because again, I'm focusing on the executive side. So to me, as a consultant going into a company that is trying to implement lean and they're asking questions, why should we have lean? Or a chief operating officer at Seabird Products, who we are currently going through lean as well, and have been for the past 2 years. And that is one of the reasons why I got hired, is to turn the company around, is to understand what lean is and how to pitch it, right? So you want to make sure that you pitch it in the simplest way possible. So to me, lean is a management about creating value. It is very, very important to focus on obviously cost savings, but that is not the only reason why you should have lean. If you only focus on cost savings, you're only pitching it to the CFO of the company, where some of the other executives are not looking at it that way, right? So you have to focus on what is and what is not making your company revenue. From a CFO perspective, that's what they're looking at, right? Every salesperson in a company, CFO is a liability. Where to a VP of sales, it's a cost of doing business. That cost of doing business generates more revenue. So it just depends on how you're looking at it from that side, okay? So lean truly in the US, I look at it when Henry Ford started a path of efficiency and lean management on Model T, right? And creating the assembly line in the 1920s. But most people look at it from a Toyota's perspective. Again, in the automotive manufacturing industry, where Toyota really took it kind of like lean on steroids, if you will. And they focused on inventory strategies. They focused on just in time, where you deliver products to assembly lines and processes right in that time when you need it. So from that perspective, again, depends truly on how you look at it and what you're trying to achieve, okay? So why is lean important to companies? There are a lot of reasons why lean is important to companies. From my perspective, being on the executive side of businesses, and then pitching lean to other executives, because without that buy-in, it's really, really hard to implement lean from bottom up. I always pitch lean to companies top down, bottom up, and there are multiple reasons for that we will touch base a little bit later on in this presentation. So lean management is all about maximizing profits. You guys see on the top right there, or right above lean there, north cost reduction, right? Maximizing profits, cost reduction. That is the primary reason why companies get into lean optimization, Six Sigma, and process improvement. But lean really has other benefits as well. Lean can be utilized from a customer's viewpoint in mind, right? And that is customer service. Better processes you have in your organization, you will be more tailored towards your customers, and your customers will understand and get better customer service. I'll give you guys an example. We at Seabright Products have a on-time delivery of 98%. The reason why we have on-time delivery of 98%, and we are not in the automotive industry, we manufacture products for the recycling industry, compactors that crush trash, balers. We have foam densifiers. We have 9 different product lines. And during COVID time, it was very hard to give out lead times to our customers so they could understand, hey, this is the time and time frame I have. I'm building a new facility. When will I have your equipment? Because all of it has to come together. Well, it was hard to do that because of the illumination of the supply chain. It was very tough to get parts, electric parts, components, hydraulic parts. Yeah, most of our equipment is steel. Some of our equipment really weighs 55,000 pounds. It goes all the way up to that point. So unless you have lean and you have process improvement and you have a better understanding of what is going on in the company, you cannot give those lead times to that customer. And customer service gets improved quite a bit. Lean management is also being and paying attention to details, right? So as you go through that process, does not matter which industry you're in. You could be in healthcare, you could be in manufacturing, you could be in the hotel industry, you could be in tourism. Paying attention to details and making sure that you have a process, standard operating procedures is part of that process as well, right? So as you go through that process, you understand what your defects are and what your rework is. In this case, it says products, but it could truly be anything, right? You could look at it from a perspective. If I work in a hotel and somebody comes and greets me at the front desk, step-by-step process and how to make that more efficient, focusing on customer service, focusing on efficiency, focusing on greeting and creating a company culture and how we treat customers entering that hotel. Culture changes happen as well when you're implementing lean. And the reason why it is important, lean will always touch base in a company culture because it will illuminate those inefficiencies. And that company culture will be affected in one way, shape, or form. Okay. Implementing lean, you always have to deal with the executives, you have to deal with the employees, and you have to navigate it in a way politically correct, I will say, where you're not stepping on anybody's toes. And it is a very, very fine line on how you execute that. So having that in mind is very important. But lean, generally speaking, will always impact the company culture for the better if it is implemented in a proper way. And it is rolled out in a proper way with the right people, with the right strategic direction as the companies move forward. Employee retention. As employees, if you implement lean and employees get onboarded with lean and they get trained and they understand why they're doing lean and they go through the process, they will become part of the decision makers in that organization because they will have full authority to make those decisions. Okay. As you go through that process, the employee retention gets better because people, again, are taking ownership of the job and they feel as part of the team. And of course, then you have company growth and you're maximizing your operational performance, which in return gives you better profits, less waste, right? And it gives you a better understanding of what truly is going on. So this is specifically focused on organization and companies, but you can implement the same process in any organization, right? If you look at the US military, if nobody has ever implemented lean before and truly wants to understand how lean impacts the company culture, the growth and employee retention, there's a great book out there called Team of Teams by a US general. I really encourage everybody to read that book because it will truly give you a good idea as to how lean can be implemented in a lot of different venues and companies and organizations. Okay. So we move on to the next slide as to why lean fails. And after I'm done with this slide, I'll open it up for discussion for everybody to kind of give me some input on your end as well as to if any of you have started lean and why it failed on your end. it always comes down, in my experience, right? There's 1,000 reasons as to why certain things work and certain things do not work. And the same thing applies to lean. In my experience, the primary reason, as I go through this list, is lack of training. And that lack of training goes from the top down, always goes from top down. If people on the executive side do not understand what lean is about and how lean aligns with the strategic direction of what they're trying to achieve, it will never work. If we set out our goals, and I do not run marathons, but I'll put this out there. If I wanted to run a marathon, I want to do a 25K marathon. Obviously, you have to start training, right? You have to start running, and you have to do it incrementally. And you have to create a plan as to how you're going to do that. What are your goals at 3-month interim? Where do you want to be? Do you want to be at 5K, at 10K, at 15K? What's your speed? Where are you going to run? Is there going to be hills? Is it straight? There's a lot of things that you could put in place to create that goal. Same thing applies with companies. If you're looking at a lean implementation, you have to have a strategic goal. And if you have the strategic goal, but you do not apply training across the board, right, it will fail. Too much at once. And going back to the same example, if you run a marathon, you're not going to say, if you never run, if I were to run 25K right now, I'd probably die 3 kilometers into it. Okay, because I don't exercise. I probably shouldn't say that. I try to exercise, but you try to do too much at once, right? So that's what companies do. You have improper planning, okay? You're not trying to rule it out with a strategic direction and eating an elephant a bite at a time. Planning is not set up in place. You really don't have the proper or the correct KPIs, right? KPIs, key performance indicators. Key performance indicators will change. They will be different for each organization. They will even be different for each department. Focusing on the wrong KPIs gives the executive team an impression, right? If I focus on KPIs and I pitch to my CFO how many conversations we had on the sales side with individual customers, but he doesn't truly care about the sales side. He's a CFO. He's looking at it from where's my cost, where's my profit, what are my margins, right? That's the wrong person to pitch those KPIs to. So each department has to have specific KPIs that apply to them that are then rolled up into the executive team. And those KPIs have to match the goals of that department. So focusing on the wrong KPIs is a huge problem in any organization. Resistance to change, even if the executives buy into it and they are 100% willing to do it. Once you start rolling out lean and you go through the process, if you try to do too much at once, or you don't plan it properly, or you have the wrong KPIs, or you don't train the people properly, you will hit that resistance to change because they don't understand it. You're overwhelming them because they already have a job, and they're probably overwhelmed in this current economy as it is because there's not enough employees out there and everybody's overworked. You don't plan it properly. They're looking at it and it doesn't make sense to them. You have the wrong KPIs that they do not care about. You will get a resistance to change because they don't see the value as to why they should be doing it. And then you have lack of commitment, which obviously subsequently follows all of this because, again, all of those reasons prior to it. And then finally, culture change. As you go through all these steps and why lean could fail, culture change is a huge problem. If the company has never, or organization has never had lean before, and they're trying to roll out too much at once, or you're trying to implement lean, it's just another person walking through the organization trying to tell everybody what to do, right? Don't do it this way, do it that way. Why are you doing it this way? If you guys have ever watched Office Space, when Bob and Bob come in and ask questions, says, you know, what is it that you do here? It's kind of like that process. If you're a consultant, you walk in a company and you get a lot of resistance, and the culture change really, if the culture is not embracing lean, it is very hard to do that. Okay. So before I continue further, I'd like to ask any of you guys if you had any other reasons why when you started implementing lean and why it failed on your end.
from my opinion, Amir, you've really touched on the top ones, and I've seen companies where I walked in and they tried to implement lean from the bottom up, and that never works because they have no support.
Yes, that is always very, very hard. In smaller organizations, it is a lot easier to do. In my experience, any company up to maybe 100 employees, implementing lean bottom up sometimes works because you have direct access to the executives, and you have direct access. You can just walk into the executive office and say, this is what we're doing. But as the company grows and you become more than 100 employees, it gets really hard to be done from bottom up perspective. Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, leadership change halfway through, right? Somebody gets promoted, whatever, change of direction, you're done.
Very good. That's actually part of the, you're jumping my slides, but that's a very, very good comment. Yes.
Thank you, Emir. I agree with everything you said. One thing I've done both consultant, I've been leading global, Lean Six Sigma deployment in 3 companies. One of the key points I found is really find the pain points of the company or the plant you're going to make changes, right? If you understand the pain points, you can make an alignment with them, and then it's pretty easy to say, hey, you're coming to reduce my pain, right?
Correct.
Or you're gonna make my pain go away, right? So, yep, I totally agree with you. I think finding the pain point or the sense of urgency, the alignment is very critical. It doesn't matter top down or bottom up. Yep, thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the comment.
Emir, I would add, I like your list, and I would just add that I experienced a shop that was under 100 employees, and they had too many consultants. They had financial consultants, they had IT consultants, and everybody had a great idea. And so there was a lack of traction.
I have come across that a few times as well. Me, myself, in previous years, obviously I was a consultant to Seabright Products, right? And then they hired me to be chief operating officer. But I've been to a lot of companies where they've changed, is just consult every 3 months, a new consultant comes in, right? And going through that, if you're the 7th person coming in, right? People are resistant to that change because like, oh, it's just another guy coming in and he's going to tell me what to do, and in 3 months he's going to be gone. 100% agree. Very good. Well, if nobody else has anything else to pitch in, you guys keep in mind, even though I know everybody loves my beautiful accent, but it is a coffee chat, so feel free to jump in as we're going through these. Okay. So, importance of lean to executives. From executive perspective, and I know for a fact there's a few executives here in this chat as well. Through the few years that I did consulting, right, I'm just pointing out a few here, and again, there's a lot more important reasons why lean is very, very important to executives. Otherwise, it would not be very much implemented throughout the world and embraced wholeheartedly. Pretty much any country you go into, any business, any city, really worldwide, somebody's doing lean in some way, shape, or form. But I'm just calling out a few here that I have seen that are very, very important, that kind of like talks about the process here as to how to pitch lean to executives. Always comes to the reward, right? Somebody mentioned, as people move jobs, a proper execution of lean has always a higher reward for individuals and teams. So an executive that rolls out lean, that is something that they could be proud of. That is something that they will most likely get rewarded for. That is something they will get looking for a new job, moving to a different position. That is something that they can use as a case study moving up. And we as humans, not saying all of us, most of us, a bit on the selfish side, we always look at it as, especially in the executive side, okay, because you have to be, again, not trying to step on anybody's toes. There has to be a certain level of ego on the executive level, even to be there. So on the executive side, people always look at it, well, what is my reward in this? So me as a support staff or a consultant, it is always a good idea to make that person look good in their boss's eyes. So if I'm implementing lean in a company and my boss is an executive and I'm going to say he's the chief operating officer and he wants me to implement lean, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to make him look really, really good to the president of the company. If that makes him look good to the president of the company, obviously he's going to get promoted. And in return, what he's going to do, he's going to take me with him because I helped him or her to get there. So reward for them on an individual or a team basis. Companies and people always shift. And as people shift and each company, especially again, in this economy where there's a lack of employees, companies are always stealing people from each other, right? In the same industry. So as a person moves and they get a better job at a new company, higher position, they will most likely, if you did a great job, pull you with them, right? So that is one way as to how executives look at it. What is it in it for me? Yes, it's great for the company. It's amazing for the team. All great. But at the end of the day, how is that going to help me with my career? And where am I going to end up in the current company? Or if I shift my job, how is this going to help me to get a better job somewhere else? Okay. It's one of those resume things, right? Return on investment. Cash is king, right? From a CFO's perspective, you'll implement lean, you put the right KPIs in, you go through that process. This is why it's important to them. CFO is only looking on return on investment. And that is, if you work with the CFO and you're pitching lean to a CFO, that is what you focus on, ROI. If we implement this, how is this going to impact your bottom line? How is this going to make you look good? Where are you going to save money? Where are you going to improve process? And that's how you pitch it. Efficiency, right? Importance is always efficiency, and this goes across the board. It does not matter if you're a VP of sales, you're a customer service manager, you're the CFO, you're the president. Everybody's looking for efficiencies. And throughout the years, we have changed how we manage people, and micromanagement currently is very much frowned upon. 30 years ago, not so much. That's how they did it, right? But in the current leadership strategies and leadership change, right? Everybody's trying to stay away from micromanagement. Less you micromanage, the more efficient you are. So if you're having that efficiency, you have less micromanagement to do, which means you can focus on more important things. Accountability, having that set in place where you remove the waste, you improve the process, you put monitored things in checks, and you know who's responsible for what. You build out your cycle, you build out who's responsible, and then when things go wrong, you always know how to fix it. Not necessarily to fire people, to punish people, but how to fix it, okay? And then finally, you can see this one because I have this thing up, growth, right? Repeatable process across different departments and industries. If I am a CFO of a manufacturing facility that makes automotive wheels and move somewhere else, that process of lean is very much repeatable regardless of the industry of the department because it's very much standardized. You can always implement it somewhere else. Okay. Consequences of implementing lean without that executive commitment. And this is where we really get into our topic today, right? If you implement lean without having the executive commitment, they will not assign any resources to you. Okay. If you do not have the resources, you do not have the funds, you do not have the time, you do not have the people, you do not have the proper execution planned out, that will lead to incorrect training, and it will lead to incorrect KPIs, right? Because you do not have the time to focus on it wholeheartedly. So, if you implement lean without the executive commitment, and specifically in this topic is the CFO, because they're responsible for the money and allocating budgets, right? Smaller companies could be the president, could be CEO, person who's handling money. You want to make sure that if they do truly believe that you're going to be successful in rolling out your lean, right? Create a plan, make sure you have enough resources, people, money, time, right? Processes, computers, whatever you need, make sure that you have it. Otherwise, it will not be very successful. Okay? The second line item is if you implement lean without that executive commitment, right? You will come across barriers because you will hit that culture change. You will start poking the bear, you will ask questions, people aren't gonna like it, right? That will cause disruption within that organization. If you cause disruption within that organization, that will be a problem. So not having the executive team to back you up and say, yes, we are doing this, will definitely, I've seen it across many different countries, across different industries, where they will just shut it down because you're, again, poking the bear, right? You're asking people questions, especially if you're doing a bottom up, because you're the lean implementation specialist, right? Whatever your title might be, you go to the manager, whether it's in a supply chain, customer service, you start asking questions, they look at you as the underling underneath them. They don't pay attention to you. It will not be successful if the boss of the boss of the boss does not come down and says, yes, Mike, Sally, this is what we want to do. This is how you have to do it. And please start doing this. Okay. Resistance to change and lean implementation. I don't care how much they love lean. I don't care how big the organization is. You will always come to resistance to change, whether that's on the executive side, whether that's on the employee side, it will always be there. Even if you get the executive team in the same room and they got 5 guys in the same room and they're all agreeing to it, one of those guys or gals is not gonna like it and they're just raising their hand because their boss is sitting there. Okay, but then when you start implementing it, they will start putting some issues and barriers in front of you, which is going to cause you issues. So you have to be very particular as to how you go through the implementation, right? If you start doing lean and that change hits into effect, right? Again, like I said, people aren't going to like it. That could also cause a high turnover and employees could leave. I have seen many companies here in Grand Rapids that have started rolling out lean. People did not like it. They didn't see the value in it. The executive team didn't understand it, right? Now everybody can question everybody in the company. It is not a vertical organization. It is a horizontal organization. This is not what I signed up for. I have to authority over what I do. Why is another person telling me what to do and what to focus on? I have my own goals. I don't like this anymore. I move on. Okay. So you have to be very, very careful as to when this is being rolled out without having executive commitment. It could definitely cause issues. Okay. If you roll out team without the executive commitment, and I mean all of the executives, right? And you only focus on one guy, you could spend the money on the wrong things. Let's talk about VP of sales. Okay. Executive of sales, the president, the VP of sales, they say, I want to have lean because I want to understand from the CRM perspective, how do we improve our sales strategy and how many people do we talk to and how do we increase that conversion ratio from leads to contacts to actually close sales. Okay. You start rolling out lean, you're focusing on the sales process. And you say, I need a new CRM, and I'm just going to pick on HubSpot. Okay. If any of you are using HubSpot, I apologize. I'm just using them as an example. I use HubSpot. It doesn't give me the right KPIs, doesn't give me the right dashboards. What I truly need in order to track all of this, because I have no way of doing it, is I need to get Salesforce. You go out, you get Salesforce, you spend $11,000 a month, and it turns out the CFO comes down and says, well, why are you spending all this money just on one CRM? We're a small company, we truly do not need it, right? So resources spent on the wrong things, right? So as you go through lean, make sure you get executive commitment for all the executives, make sure your KPIs are lined up, right? And you focus on those items that are truly important to you, okay? On the next slide, and after this one, we'll stop again and ask you guys a few questions. Lean could divide a company even further. So if you have an organization and you don't have truly the executive commitment of everybody buying into Lean, and you do not have to roll out Lean all at once. Okay? You can focus on 5S. You can focus on a certain department. You can sort of focus on one product group. You can focus on a team within a department. Okay, you could narrow it down to wherever you would like it to be, right? But if you roll out team to a culture that is not prone to Lean, and you roll out team to a company that is not acting as a team already, and there's clashes on the executive side, on the employee side, between the departments, there's no collaboration. I can guarantee you that that's even going to drive it further and is going to create more issues. Okay. I have seen that on the state level. I've seen it on the city level, on the county level, right? As the federal or state governments, they try to implement Lean and go through their processes, work with a few of those. It's very hard to roll that out if there is not a buy-in. And if the company culture or organization culture is not set up in a way for collaboration, it will drive it even further apart. Okay. Lean success will not make it to the top if executives are not buying into it. Okay. So if I'm rolling out Lean and I only got a buy-in from one executive, and that executive only focuses on his department or her department, they will try to hide some of those things from the other executives, right? I've seen that as well. That will create even bigger culture change within the organization, right? And not everybody's going to see the value. So then they're going to start playing against each other, and you want to avoid that. So anytime you talk about Lean, and even if you're rolling it out just in one department, ask all the executives to be involved in that process when you're going through and you're giving updates. Okay. If the CEO, back to the previous comment that I just made, is not aware, not supported, and the CFO and the CEO are not included in that conversation, you might be able to implement it in one department, but it is going to be very, very tough to roll it out company-wide because they will not see it. They will not see the value in it. Okay. During the transition, and this is what somebody also mentioned in previous comments, right? As people move, somebody else new comes into the department, right? If you are not explaining to the whole executive team, they have never done Lean before, a new CFO, new COO, CEO, whatever the C-level executive title may be, comes in, they don't see the value in it. It's going to be very, very tough to roll it out to them if they are not buying into it, and if the top person in that organization is not driving it down. Okay, so bottom up, top down has to go both ways. And then again, can't emphasize this enough. If you roll out Lean without the executive commitment, the inefficiencies will illuminate. Okay, just like during COVID with the supply chain issues, right? Some studies have suggested 95% of the companies before COVID did not truly understand their full illumination of the supply chain. What that means is that I knew who my first supplier is, but I never knew who the second supplier to my first supplier is. So if I look at it from the automotive industry, I know who my tier 1 supplier is. I have no idea who's supplying my supplier. Okay. And that is what caused some of these issues in the US when it came to supply chain, because a lot of that stuff was coming from overseas as we did offshoring pushes in the previous years. And that caused a lot of problems. So now companies are onboarding suppliers, and I'll give you guys an example in at Seabright Products. We try to illuminate 3 levels into the supply chain for that specific reason. So I need to know who the supplier and supplier of my supplier is, because if I cannot get a certain part, if I can't get steel, if I can't get an electrical components, I need to understand who is supplying them, what their issues are, and then further down 3 levels into that supply chain. Okay. Any comments on any of the things that I have currently said before we move on? No?
It's good, very, very good points. I totally agree with you. I do like to add some point. It's sometimes impossible to get a buy-in from everyone in the CEO's team or including the CEO, right?
Yes.
So the buy-in from the CEO and also the CFO are most critical, or depending on where you are going to start your pilot, right? In a plant or in the
Right.
financial department or in the sales department, and then not, like you said, not VP or not leader in that department will be very, very, very critical, right?
Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
sometimes you almost have like a chicken egg problem, catch 22, right? If you don't have credibility, you don't get the commitment, right? You
right.
don't get a commitment, you're gonna fail, right?
100%.
I can tell you one story in my former company when I started. The CFO worked for formal automobile suppliers. Every CEO he worked for in the four formal companies was talking about the Lean Six Sigma, putting somebody in a leadership position to implement, but he did not see any bottom line improvement. Okay.
Yeah.
So for him, that's just a lip service, right?
Right.
So when he and I report to the same CEO in his number 5 company as CFO, he was just wait and see to see if I'll be doing the same thing in the former 4 companies, right?
Right.
Until in half a year, he saw the real bottom line savings. Okay, he confirmed with his people. Okay, is Jack's team confirming those savings with you, or are they just reporting fake savings, right?
Right.
So then he started to believe in this, and then he confessed to me in private. He said, Jack, now finally, I almost gave up my entire hope for Lean Six Sigma, until I met you, until I saw your results, right?
Right.
So then, of course, the CEO hired me, the CEO had faith in me. So now once these 2 guys on board, everything else will be easier because they keep talking, preaching the message I was preaching. I don't have to preach this anymore. It's the CEO, the CFO, they are the messengers for me, for my peer group, right?
100%, Dr. Feng. That's a very, very good comment. I actually have in the next few slides, I have exactly to that point, how to pitch it and how to go about it if you're not buying into it. So I don't want to spoil it. So I'll just skip to those slides and we'll go through it.
I can give you a short example. One of my professional friend was asking me for reference. He said, hey, Dr. Feng, there's a director of Lean, whatever position I want to apply. Can you be my reference? So I want to see if the CEO is really true about this, right? I said, okay, who do you supposed to report to, right? Well, I will report this position reports to VP of IT. Another VP of IT reports to CFO, right? I said, look, you're not going to be successful. Okay.
Right.
You are reporting to IT VP reports to CFO, and then, right? So I said you can try if you think the salary is high and then your current salary, you're okay to fail, but at least you have been doing this once. Then go ahead, try this. But I don't think you'll be successful. And then eventually he did not even apply for the job. Thank you.
People talk to each other, right? So you have to understand who the CEOs are. And obviously this is, in the age of information, it is very helpful to understand what you're getting into before you get into it, right? So that's very helpful. Well, very good. Thank you so much for your comments. I really appreciate it. So we'll skip to the next slides and then I'll talk about that a little bit here as well. Okay. So best practices in Lean implementation. And this again is focusing primarily on the executive side. Okay. There are millions of different ways how you implement Lean in any organization and process improvement. But this is really focusing on the executive side, like I said. Incremental changes are the key. So do not overstructure it. Don't try to eat the whole elephant at once. Everybody's heard that expression before, but it's really the key. Do incremental changes, go through the process slowly, and then always have a centralized point of contact. Always know who is rolling out your Lean, what you're trying to accomplish, and have that one person that's responsible for. All right. Train your team on Lean management principles. Don't go big into it, trying to do, Six Sigma go through the whole process, you know, have spreadsheets and things that you're tracking where your lights flicker when you turn on your computer, right? Keep it simple, but train them on the principles so they understand what they are and use those principles that are common sense, okay? Always have adopt change management approach, okay? Read books on it, understand how change management works, how you go through debates, because this is going to be a debate. When you go through, you have to convince people why you want them to do something that they naturally would not do, right? And then, like Dr. Feng said, measure everything and track your success. Go through that process, make sure you measure it. It says here success because you're pitching your success, but know what your downfalls are as well. What does not work, fix it right away. You should not really have no success, because you should catch it right away, okay? If it does not work, change it around. It doesn't work, change it around. Doesn't work, change it around, right? Till it actually works. And then implement lean, most important, top down and bottom up. Create a cross-functional team, very important in any organization. Bring people in that are in management position, that are not in management position, that are CFOs, that are on the C-level executive side. Have a cross-functional team across different departments that you utilize to gather ideas from and understand what their issues are. Without them, you will not know what to focus on. So make sure you have that cross-functional team, because they will support you through that process, and have people in there that are willing to speak up and challenge your thoughts, okay? If you go in there and you're just looking for people that are approving everything you're saying, you're doing it wrong. Have people in there that do not like you as a person. Have people in there that don't like what you're doing, because if you convince them that this is going to work and they give you their issues and their reasons as to why it's not going to work, you're going to be better and you're going to have better results. Okay? And then present your results every 90 days maximum to the executive team, all of them. So do not wait more than 90 days to present the findings and go through that process. In all reality, I would do it every 3 to 4 weeks. I would ask for 1 hour of their time. I would sit them down. I would have a presentation in simple terms. Don't go into details. This was the issue. This is what we accomplished. If you ever used A3, this is a great way of doing it for the issues that you're resolving. Some people don't like A3s. I love them for that specific reason, because it's very easy to show your process, the issue, the reason, how you resolved it, what the thought process was, and what the end result is. And then adopt and improve your KPIs to what makes sense. Don't stick just with one KPI, change them constantly. Go through the process, okay? Advocate for further implementation through analysis and return on investment. You have to be a numbers person. If you're not a numbers person implementing lean, you need to get somebody who's a numbers person, because that always comes down to the return on investment. Whether you're the CFO, you're the president, you're the CEO, it comes down to return on investment. You always make sure that you document your budget and have necessary funds committed, and get that always in writing, okay? Make sure you have a fund for unforeseen issues and challenges, okay? You will run out of that if you don't get enough. Don't overdo it, like I said before, but make sure that you're taken care of, okay? Make sure that you have the executive agreement on the vision and lean implementation and the strategy itself. What is it that we're trying to achieve with lean? If I'm trying to pitch lean to a company, what am I trying to achieve? What is my end result, okay? And then make sure that what I'm trying to do with my KPIs, with my lean rollout, with the department, with the whole company, right? Make sure that you track it and always document your agreements with the executives, okay? Have a conversation with them in person, do the presentation. They all say, yes, I agree. Send them an email afterwards and say, hey, this is what we talked about. This is my progress. This is what I'm trying to achieve. Do you all agree with this? Get them to buy into it in writing, because it is a lot harder for them to back out when they actually sent you an email than it is when they said it in person or over the phone. Always get it in writing, okay? And then how to get that buy-in on the executive side. So this is truly where it comes down to, if you're trying to rule it out, you don't have the executive buy-in, is create a business case. Okay, why are you doing lean? What is the goal of your lean implementation? And create urgency. Okay, we're doing it a certain way. We keep losing money. We're losing people. We have a high turnover. We got to do something about it. This is the problem. This is what I'm thinking. This is my solution. This is the end result. Focus on that. Have a business case. Know what each person in that executive team is passionate about. Okay. Like I said, turnover, waste, customer service. Highlight those issues. Have conversations with them prior. If you're rolling out lean, try to get some time with the executives just to talk to them about things. Okay. Throw things in there. How are things going with, people leaving the company? How is it going with hiring if you're dealing with HR personnel? What issues do you currently see? Do it during lunch? Stop by their office. When you see them in the hallway, try to have those small conversations where you gather information from them, kind of like a detective, that you can then later utilize and say, okay, this is what is important to them, and this is what I'm going to focus on. Have a lean champion that's going to be working on lean, right? And then have that cross-functional team that will contribute to that success of that champion that you're implementing, okay? Making sure that everybody has a way of pitching in and that their ideas are being heard. Analyze the benefits. And like I said before, not just the savings, okay? I always suggest to start with one department where you're going to have more success. If you know you have a friend in that department, you're rolling out lean, and you know that person is struggling with something, focus on that small little issue. Resolve that issue for them first. Then focus on a bigger issue. Then focus on a bit bigger issue, and then look at the whole department. Okay? Try to get their buy-in. And then if you roll it out from a small department, you can showcase and create a business case to the executives and say, hey, I have helped out Jennifer in the customer service department. We had this and this issue, and this is how we resolved it. Okay. Voice your concerns and highlight the potential hurdles as you're pitching the plan to them, right? You are not the savior. You're not the person that has all the answers. You're simply there trying to figure out what the problems are, find a resolution, fix it. Okay. But there is going to be issues in that process, and the executive team has to understand it, because if they don't, if you make the assumption that you know everything, they will not buy into it. Okay. Paint a complete picture for them, the cost, the process, the benefits, all of the above. Okay. And then sell the opportunity to have urgency. And again, make a lasting impact on the organization. Every executive wants to have some shape or form of a calling, if you will, on their end. So what is it that they're leaving behind, even if they leave the company, and you focus on that. And then finally, you got to know your politics. Okay. Anything that you try to do, including lean in an organization, I don't care how small, how big, you have to understand politics and how things are being done. I know it's not the right thing to say, but if you do not understand politics, you will not be able to convince people as to how to roll out lean. And you have to know what is important to them, what's important to the decision makers, what are the things that keep them awake at night, and you focus on those problems to resolve them. Knowing those politics and knowing people and what bugs them is what is going to get that buy-in for you to roll out team, okay, lean, okay, on that specific team. And then most important part of this whole conversation, I'm kind of running out of time here. I think I got to line 30. So the most important part about this is make your case with facts, okay? If you don't remember anything about this whole presentation, if you just leave with this, okay? We mentioned egos, we mentioned C-level executives. There's a reason why they're there. They're usually smart people. They are usually, I'm saying usually, a bit on the egoistic side, and they do not like to be told what to do. So make your case always with facts, because nobody likes being told what to do, especially the C-level executives. Okay? Know your numbers, know what's dear to them and what bugs them at night, okay? Focus on one department as you go through it. But the most important part is have facts of the issues, have facts of how you're gonna resolve it, and then track everything, how you do it, and have facts, clear results, not made up numbers. Dr. Feng said that some people did, right? Have clear facts that can be backed up as you go through that process. Okay? So, Jane, I'll give it back to you. I know I ran a bit over, and I truly apologize, but I'm open to any questions that anybody has, if anybody has any.
We still have 5 minutes, so if anyone has any questions for Emir, please ask away.
Could be comments as well. There's still a talking tab, like I said.
Hi, Emir. This is Holly Plaga. I joined late. I'm sorry. You know, I really appreciate everything you shared, and it brings back a lot of, you know, if I looking back at my history, you know, where trying to implement has failed. You touched on so many opportunities for improvement. One of the things that I'd like to also enhance or emphasize is your point of, you know, working with the C-suite or the folks in the senior leadership positions. You need to get buy-in for sure, and then help them or come up with a messaging strategy, like you mentioned. But also, as a practitioner, I know probably a lot further down in the ranks, you have to also work with that chief of operations, let's say, to make sure that they are also getting the buy-in from, or working on the buy-in. So it's not just you trying to campaign, it's also they need to be working and emphasizing this with their peers. But that's part of the problem, is that you might have one COO who's fully engaged, but they don't work across with their peers to bring them on board.
100% agree. So I don't know if you were here when we kind of talked a little bit about it, as when doing reporting on lean process and lean success, right? Involve rest of the C-level executive team, even though they're not part of that. Just so you can kind of brag a little bit about it, if you will, right? So that they get the buy-in as well.
Right.
Very good. Very good comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emir. I agree with Honi. One comment, so when you started a new consultant job or new formal full-time job, it's very hard to really identify where to start to have some quick wins to prove your credibility, right?
Right.
So if you watch a video, a TED video, the name is How to Start a Movement. The key point is to find the first follower. This person has some formal experience before, but then he or she cannot start this one because there's no upper management commitment, right? So in my current new job, 2 years in a row, in the beginning, when I visited all the 8 plants, I talked to the 8 plant managers, and I found one guy who had done this before and then worked for GM. And he said, Jack, if you want to do early pilot, I will be happy to pilot in my plant for you. That became my first follower, right?
Right.
And then I put all my resources together, making sure the first pilot project will be successful. And then the other 7 plant managers come to them and say, yes, see, you know, he's doing the same thing, but he's much more successful. And then his, let's say, cost per wheel is much lower. His scrap rate is much lower. His PPM became like a single digit, like 6 Sigma level, right?
Wow.
Now all these other people come like to see, okay, this is my internal Toyota, you know, model, right? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Feng, for the comment. 100% agree. So we have one question here, is how do you deal with an executive from Jason Cook who is resistant to spending time measuring things? This makes it very difficult to track KPIs. If you are a person, that's a very good question. If you are the person rolling it out, right? you have to measure things. If you're a deer and it really would like to push it through, I always did it in my own time, right?
Yeah.
Measuring things on my own time, measuring things after work, before work, getting other people's to buy into it, bribing them, even if you will, a little bit on the side, right? To give you certain KPIs. But again, the key is you have to have the right KPI and you don't have to overdo it. So if you measure KPIs, don't measure everything that you measure. Focus on certain items that are really true and dear to that specific manager, and find one. Just find one to measure and then roll it out to the next one. So do it in increments.
You know, I also think, Emir, it's a personal investment. So for you as a person to invest in yourself, you must have KPIs. And, you know, because if you go on to a different job and or you are challenged about your validity within your current position, at least you have those KPIs and you are measuring the work efforts to support your business case as a person. A big mistake I made originally was I thought people would look out for me and didn't have that data. And so, you know, lesson learned that, you know, like updating your resume, make sure that you keep KPIs, at least, like you said, on your own time to validate the work that you've done.
100%. 100%. Can we go through one more question that we got from Marcel?
Sure.
All right, so share some quick thoughts on scaling lean efforts for smaller companies versus larger companies. Dr. Feng talked about, you know, GM, talked about these big organizations, Universal Forest Products here in town, right? $70 billion company. They usually have a lot of resources. They see the value because there's thousands of people in that organization. They'll have teams that just focus on lean. But West Michigan is smaller organization, right? Mom and pop shops. Scaling it to the previous question and the KPIs, right? Lean always starts, honestly, for me, in KPIs, right? Key performance indicators. What are you tracking, right? What is the issue? So scaling it to small companies, find one person that understands data, first of all, right? That person has all, which is kind of hard to find, somebody who understands data and somebody who is a people's person and somebody who is really understands how to read people and how to have conversations where they can understand what's truly bugging the owner or the C-level executives, right? But working with somebody who can understand what the biggest issues are in an organization and then start tracking to illuminate those issues in a data-driven information, right? Start tracking how truly big those issues are and put a dollar value next to it. That's the best way to scale it, and then focus on the biggest issue that you have. Now, if you focus on the biggest issue, it will obviously, you'll have to break it down into pieces to go one by one. But I hope that gives you some insight, Marcel. And I'm sure we'll meet sometime in the near future, and I can give you a bit more of a rundown on that as well.
Thank you, Emir. Wonderful presentation. I think obviously in my practice, I do come across these challenges myself, and I look forward to discussing with you and perhaps with Dr. Fang some of these thoughts, because I think it's a combination of identifying the most impactful KPIs and the ones that are potentially leading to quicker results to get traction.
100%.
Thank you.
Yes, and Dr. Fang and a few other people are all going to be with us next Friday. So if any of you haven't signed up yet, but have the capability to attend, there is the Lean Leader Summit next week in Lansing, Michigan. Thank all of you for joining today, and we will talk to you next month at the next coffee chat. Everyone take care.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Emir. Fabulous
All right.
job.
Yeah,
Great job,
incredible.
Emir. Thank you.